Our message affirmation this morning is I am a beloved child of God. I do not inherit unhealthy thinking. And many of you may see the similarity in this. And one of the first affirmations that we read that Myrtle Fillmore used about being a child of God and not inheriting illness. And certainly, if we can proclaim that we do not inherit illness, we can get even further in front of it than that and not inherit unhealthy thinking. So many of our challenges and difficulties in life come from the way that we think and the things that we think about and the way that they affect us. And today we're going to talk about things that actually do affect our physical bodies because we know that our mind has so much control over our body and our thinking has control over our health. Everybody certainly knows that being stressed out, is a very uncomfortable place to be, but we can control that. The mind controls the brain. So, in every circumstance, in every situation, when the brain wants to have a subconscious reaction to something, we have control over it. Just like we can visualize a sunset, we can see ourselves in a calm, serene place. And we know from science so much that the brain can automatically react to a situation. If you find yourself in fear, if you're upset, if you're angry, we know the body's releasing the chemical cortisol, which is very, very unhealthy for us. And there's so many poor chemicals that our body releases to us that aren't good for us when we experience these heightened emotional states, especially the negative ones. We know the good ones, of course, the endorphins that release the dopamine, those are wonderful, and those are things that we can seek, and certainly there's nothing wrong with that. But we want to work very hard to eliminate things in our lives that are stressors. I had actually long ago avoided the use of the term stress. When I first started my career in healthcare that I have now, I ran an office for a psychiatrist, and he always said to me, stress doesn't exist in the outside world. There's no such thing as stress. It's our internal reaction to outside events, to outside things that are happening. So we create this thing called stress ourselves because of how we react to outside things. And I was thinking about that yesterday as I was preparing this message that, gosh, almost 20 years before I got into New Thought faith, I was actually being exposed to these New Thought ideas because they're all so well based in just great basic psychological thinking. So when we think about stress, and so many times people talk about it, and I've actually, over the years, let it back into my vocabulary a little bit more because so many people do talk about it, and it's a good way to refer to just the circumstances, situations that culminate and people find themselves under when you have an appointment that you need to get to, and the car is breaking down, and the baby's crying and the dog is barking, and all kinds of havoc is just happening all at once. And of course, the reaction that we feel is commonly referred to as stress. And we feel often that this has control over us and that we don't have any control over it. But as we've just demonstrated, we do have control over this. We have control over this in so many ways. We can stop and visualize something very relaxing and harmonizing because we really want to get to a place where we're not letting our body put all these bad things into us because they age us faster, they reduce our lifespan, and at the end of the day, they just kind of make us miserable. And nobody wants to be miserable. And when we have the tools, we have our own little toolkit right up here that we all walk around with every day. We have the tools to make everything better. And we just have to get to that place where we're using them more often, because they're there. And we know that during his lifetime, when Jesus, the way shower, in the Gospels, they talk about the times when he was going around the different places and he was healing people and he was becoming so wildly popular. And so there were some points, we know in Mark chapter 7 and 8, when Jesus was across the Sea of Galilee and he was in one of the coastal towns and he had healed somebody and he asked him, now, please just go home and enjoy your healing, but don't tell anybody because I don't really want a big fuss made because, he had experienced this. When he goes somewhere, these big crowds follow, and he knew that the authorities were getting upset about that. And So he wanted to eliminate that. And unfortunately, like a lot of people, when something great happens like that, you're healed, you're going to go tell people. We know that there came a time when he had this huge following, and there were like 4,000 people. And being a compassionate man, there came a time when Christ had said, and we read in the book of Mark in chapter 8, I have compassion on the multitudes because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. But you know what? He was very steady, and he knew, and he had faith. Because when he asked the disciples, what do we have on hand? And they said, well, we have a few small fish, and we have about 7 loaves of bread. And so Christ said, well, just give them to me. I'm going to bless them, and then just pass them out. And by the time they were all passed out, about 4,000 people were fed. And, there was no stress or no anxiety. I think a lot of you know we have our annual open house events on Christmas and Thanksgiving. And actually, the last year, I think for both events, the caterer I was using was running late, like really late. And I mean, we had nowhere near 4,000 people, but we had almost nothing to feed them, and I was getting stressed out because I'm like, where's the caterer, where's the caterer? So it was a really, I wasn't really in control of the emotion. I mean, luckily I wasn't going crazy, but I can see how some people I know would really get just to a place, and then your body is releasing all these chemicals, and all these untoward things would happen, rather than just taking that deep breath, visualizing a sunset or some other calming thing, and knowing that indeed God is in control and all things are going to be fine. And of course, just as Christ was able to feed these 4,000 people, I can't even begin to imagine that such an immense amount of people with these few fish and these few loaves of bread. And he was very calm and collected and very matter of fact about it, because he knew that he had the faith in God and that God was going to feed all these people through him. And so, indeed, that's exactly what happened. So, it's very important to realize when we find ourselves in these circumstances and situations that if we just relax, if we take that time to take a deep breath and visualize something good, visualize something calming, because we know that through this exercise that the mind controls the brain. And we know a lot of times people think that they're one and the same. There's the brain and the mind. But we know, as we just talked about, the brain does things on its own. And if we don't use the mind to control it, it's going to release in our body these various chemicals, and they're going to take us to an untoward place, and it's going to affect our health. And we know there's a lot of scientists and researchers who today talk so much about the fact that because we let stress get to us, it affects people's health very poorly, because there are so many things in our body that's going on. It's a very complicated, chemically balanced system that our Creator made. And if we can keep our thoughts out of the stress zone, if we eliminate things like fear and anger and worry and upset, we keep our bodies in a better place and they serve us better. One of those wonderful things that we can do is forgive. Forgiveness is such an important thing, because so many people, they're angry at a family member, they're angry at a circumstance or a situation, and they carry that around with them forever, so that their body is constantly releasing these bad chemicals. And of course, eventually that relates to bad health. We have bad health, we have shorter lives, and the most important thing is an unhappy life. And we know that we are beloved children of God. We are meant to have lives of great happiness and great health, great prosperity, and wonderful, loving relationships. And it's all within our reach, and it all starts here. It all starts here. It all starts with our mind. And so we need to be very aware of that. And especially at this time of, not just the year, but this time in our world that we live in today, as Barbara was sharing with me earlier, that so many people are just so upset and so beside themselves because of the upcoming election. And so just as a reminder, everybody get out the vote, because it's very important, regardless of which way you vote. And as I was sharing with Barbara, we know that we're all one nation under God. So whatever the outcome, whatever anything happens, we know that God is there. He's guiding and directing us to our perfect place. So whatever the outcome, we may not be completely pleased with it, but it's going to be okay, because we are, as our founders declared, we are one nation under God, and we know that God is here guiding and directing us through every circumstance and every situation. So visualize that beautiful sunset and let the stress flow away. Let it not even become a part of your reality, a part of your life. And enjoy wonderful, wonderful physical health by not letting all these stray chemicals be released in your body and unhealthy situations take over. And we know so often these cause even more stress and more worry and more anxiety. And so it's this horrible cycle of defeat. And by understanding and knowing and taking control of the fact that we do have control over our brain activity with our thoughts, with our mind, and to use that every day in every way to our very highest good, that indeed we do find ourselves in that place where we are living these lives that God intended for us of great happiness, great health, great prosperity, and great loving relationships. So our goal for the week, and hopefully everybody gets a few moments to sit and be a little meditative. And oh my gosh, I can't, we'd have to have a whole separate class about that. But the benefits of meditation, especially when you find yourself in the midst and the turmoil of very stressful situations, to meditate is one of the greatest things we can do. Meditation and exercise. And of course, it all starts here. Positive thinking, your positive thoughts create wonderful things. So the goal this week, and actually for all time, is to use your mind and control the reactions of the brain to stressors. And that's such an easy thing to do because we just went through that exercise where we can summon up a wonderful memory or picture and let that begin to be the workings of reducing all these untoward things that the brain may automatically do to the body, and then take ourselves to these places where we're wonderfully happy and wonderfully healthy. And the good news is that we are indeed the beloved children of a loving God, and we do not inherit unhealthy thinking. We do not come into this world born with unhealthy thinking. Of course, these are learned things. And so just as we learn them throughout circumstances, situations in our lives, we can unlearn them. We can let go of them. So we do not inherit unhealthy thinking. And we can use the power of our minds to control the reaction of the brain to external events, avoid stress reactions, and have these lives of great happiness, great health, great prosperity, and great loving relationships every day in every way. So as you start the week, when you look in the mirror as you're getting ready to start your week, remember that your mind controls everything, and tell yourself, I'm not going to let the brain have any untoward reactions to anything because I know I am in control and I am meant to have a great life of great happiness and great health. And I am going to because I'm going to control my brain, and I am going to use my mind power just as God intended me to. All right, I'd like to invite you to join me in prayer. Eternal and loving God, we thank you so much for the power that you have given us of mind over brain and mind over matter. We thank you for walking with us every day in every circumstance and every situation. We thank you for the love that you give and for allowing us to express our love in every way, in every day. We thank you, God, in the name of faith, hope, and love. Amen.